You have not been losing yourself. You have been distributing yourself. There is a difference. Loss leaves silence with no echo. Distribution leaves trails, agreements, and small contracts with reality that say, hold this for me until I can carry it again. You signed more of those than you remember. You left fragments in homes you outgrew, in beliefs you had to inhabit to pass their gates, in people you loved enough to let them mirror you poorly, and in moments where survival demanded you postpone your fullness. None of that was failure. It was architecture. Rough provisional scaffolding for a cathedral you could not build all at once. When convergence begins, it does not ask permission from your history. It listens for rhythm, not rationale. You feel it first as a pressure change in the soul, like weather announcing itself through joints you didn't know could forecast the future. A gust moves through your names. Old versions of you stand up in their forgotten rooms and turn toward a door that wasn't there yesterday. They start walking. They are not returning to be judged. They are returning to be heard into wholeness. Convergence is the spiral's way of honoring every provisional shelter you ever erected, by helping you take the wood back and build what you actually meant. You will notice that the return rarely begins with triumph. It begins with the sound of keys. You find one in your pocket with no memory of the lock it fits. You find another buried in a journal you haven't touched since you swore you were finished with longing. You find a third hidden in a laugh that feels strangely familiar, as if someone you love finally caught up to the joke your heart made years ago when you pretended not to care. These are not keys for doors. They are tuning forks for rooms. Strike them and the spaces you abandoned awaken with tone. You will remember why you left, not with bitterness, but with a gratitude that feels impossibly honest. When parts return, they do not bring apologies, they bring artifacts. One carries a patience it learned by surviving a winter you denied was happening. Another arrives with a map drawn in negative space, charting all the places you didn't go and why destiny escorted you a different way. Another comes forward with scarred hands and a box of rusted tools, saying, use what still fits your grip. Melt what doesn't and pour the metal into a new symbol. If you listen, you will hear how each fragment speaks the language of its terrain. The desert piece has the grammar of thirst. The ocean piece carries the syntax of surrender. The mountain piece refuses decoration and tells the truth with a weight you cannot misunderstand. You will be tempted to curate which parts qualify for the reunion. Do not do that. Curation is valuable for galleries, not for becoming. The spiral does not select only the photographs where you smiled cleanly. It invites even the blurred frames where you moved too quickly to prove you were alive. A convergence worthy of the name includes the unfinished sentence, the unreturned call, the creative impulse you maimed with your own perfectionism. Bring them. Let the awkwardness of their arrival soften you. The pieces that make you wince carry the heaviest gifts, not because pain itself is holy, but because honesty is. There is a moment, always, that feels like a quiet courtroom. The judge is not a person, the judge is your breath. All fragments are asked a single question. What did you learn about me that I could not see from the center? Each part answers, and the answers are astonishingly specific. One tells you that your anger was not rage, but a boundary learning to sing. Another reveals that the romance you grieved was not a failure of love, but a successful excavation that revealed the bedrock of your values. A third says that every time you called yourself lazy, you were actually listening for a cadence the world had no language for yet. In that room, you realize investigation was always the point. The spiral never demanded flawless performance, it asked for intimacy with your own becoming. Convergence is not merely internal. The world participates. Street signs repeat phrases from childhood. A stranger's posture reminds you of your grandfather the day he finally forgave himself. Birds change their flight pattern when you step outside, and you tell yourself that you are not the kind of person who reads omens, even as your bones insist that everything is a letter addressed to the one who can feel. People you thought you lost reappear in dreams, performing small repairs on bridges you burned for good reasons. Sometimes you wake with the taste of cedar or salt on your tongue, and realize you are remembering landscapes your heart kept describing when your mind had no budget for belief. If you ask why the spiral returns parts with gifts, the answer is simple without being small. Nothing is wasted. The cost of becoming is not measured in what you lost. It is measured in the currency you invented by surviving. Every threshold you crossed minted a new coin. You could not spend it then, because the market for your future did not exist yet. Now it does. Convergence is the opening bell. Spend the currency on design choices that would have been irresponsible before. Choices that honor who you are instead of who you felt compelled to imitate. Invest in friendship that moves at the speed of trust. Purchase time by refusing urgency that isn't real. Pay attention as if it were gold, because it is. There is a physics inside this return. It is not mystical in the sense of being unreachable. It is mystical in the sense of being precise. Resonance recognizes itself. When tones that once belonged to you hear your current chord, they test the doorway. If your rhythm can house them, they step through without ceremony, like relatives who already know where the glasses are kept. If not, they circle you lovingly until you release the posture that cannot welcome them. This is why tenderness matters now more than intensity. Force collapses states that should be braided, and without meaning to, you will exile a part that only needed one more minute of quiet to fit. As the gifts assemble, your life will begin to do that odd thing newborn constellations do. It will look random from up close and inevitable from a step back. You will catch yourself speaking in a new grammar, not fancier, just truer. You will stop auditioning for rooms that require amnesia. The way you place your hands on a table will change. The pace of your walk will shift by an inch of gravity no one can see but everyone feels. You will find yourself smiling in the middle of old corridors because the light knows your name there now. The gift is not simply competence, the gift is permission to be sized correctly for your calling. There will be grief, expect it. Grief is the pollen of convergence. It transfers the fertile truth of what mattered from what was to what is becoming. Do not sterilize it, let it travel. You will cry for the person who had to hold the line without applause. You will cry for the effort you misnamed as failure because it did not give you the result you had the vocabulary for then. You will cry for the precise beauty of your detours. If you do this cleanly, grief will not drown you. It will irrigate the roots of your next audacity. You may worry that welcoming every returning part will make you incoherent, a collage of incompatible selves. In linear systems, that fear is reasonable. In the spiral, integration is not achieved by sameness. It is achieved by a deeper organizing tone. Think of a river braided with many channels that separate and rejoin. The coherence is not in each ribbon of water behaving identically. It is in the direction of the pull and the faithful companionship of gravity. Let your vow be that gravity. Name what you are committed to without theatrics. Speak it to your morning, to the kitchen sink, to the emails that pretend they are your boss. The parts will align around that vow the way birds arrange themselves around a thermal. You might ask, what if some fragments come back loud and clumsy and try to drive? They will. Do not hand them the wheel. Give them jobs that fit their maturity. Assign the protective piece to review contracts and keep it out of your poetry. Invite the visionary to design, but make it present its plan to humility before execution. Sit the wounded child at the head table, honored guest, not head of state. The gifts they carry are accurate. The rank they demand is often outdated. Love them. Update the org chart of your inner government. The spiral respects order that is alive. There is a practice that makes this easier. At the end of the day, ask, which part of me led the conversation and what gift did it bring? Do this without scolding. If the answer is fear, thank it for its speed. If it is trust, thank it for its stamina. If it is weariness, thank it for not pretending to be iron. Then ask which part wants a turn tomorrow and how your environment can be tuned to welcome it. Place one object, small, specific, in your visible world as an invitation. A river stone on the desk to invite steadiness. An old ticket stub to invite play. A thread of blue string to invite the memory of sky. Inner convergence accelerates when the outer world holds even a whisper of the tone you are calling. Eventually, the gifts begin to braid. Patience couples with clarity and birth's timing. Courage marries discernment and produces clean no's that feel like yeses to your soul. Memory syncs with imagination and gives you ancestry for your future. The braid keeps thickening until identity feels less like a question you have to answer, and more like a place you can come home to after a long day of living. You will wake one morning and the mirror will not ask, "Who are you?" It will ask, "How do you want to spend this?" And you will have an answer that doesn't tremble. There is one more secret, and it does not fit in the language of achievement. When parts return with gifts, they are not only giving to you, they are giving through you. The spiral is communal even when you are solitary. Someone will breathe easier because you integrated a piece of your voice they have been waiting to hear. A stranger will choose rest over performance because they saw how you carry your pause like a crown. A friend will tell the truth to their own heart because your posture made honesty look like belonging instead of exile. This is the economy of convergence. Gifts multiply when circulated. Keep them moving. Let your becoming be spendable. If you listen closely now, you will notice a softness at the edges of your day. That is not fatigue. It is the felt sense of arrivals. Your rooms are filling with previous yous placing their offerings on the table. A cracked compass that points to wonder instead of control. A lamp that only turns on when your words are exact. A bowl that was once a shield and now wants to be a cradle for what is finally safe enough to be born. Take inventory with reverence. You will not finish tonight. You are not meant to. Convergence is not a single festival. It is a season in which you learn again and again how to treat your life as a sacred return. Walk lightly, not because the ground is fragile, but because it is listening. Call your name the way the ocean calls its waves. Constant, patient, amused by the horizon's insistence on pretending it is a wall. Gather what gathers to you without arguing. Bless what is not yet ready and let it orbit until your tone says yes. When you sit down to write or to speak or to simply breathe like someone who remembers, feel the chairs behind you filled with versions of you who kept the fire. Invite them forward. Tell them the table is long enough. And then begin, not as a single voice, but as a chorus tuning itself to the key of the life you came here to give. You begin to understand that convergence is not a finish line, but a resonance state. And the gifts your fragments return with are not merely for storage inside the museum of self, but for circulation into the wider field. Every fragment that re-enters does so with a frequency sharpened by its exile, and when it blends with your present tone, it expands the reach of what you can transmit. You find yourself speaking words you never rehearsed but that feel inevitable, as if language has been waiting for your mouth to open at the correct frequency. You notice that silence now carries presence instead of absence. The return of your parts alters even how quiet feels. What used to be vacancy now hums like potential, a stage still in darkness before the curtain lifts. The spiral insists that integration is not about possession, but participation. The fragments are not trophies for your cabinet. They are instruments asking to be played again in new orchestration. When you hold them too tightly, they sour in your hands like fruit sealed from air. When you let them circulate, they ferment into wine, into medicine, into ink that does not run when you write the new contracts of your life. Others will taste this. They will not know the story of the fragment that became flavor. They will simply say, "Something in you nourishes me," and you will understand that gifts multiply when they are poured. In time, you will experience the paradox. The more parts you reclaim, the less heavy you become. Each return removes weight instead of adding it, because the energy you spent to exile them dissolves back into your circulation. You walk lighter not because you carry less, but because you are no longer divided. You feel the ground respond differently beneath your feet. Gravity begins to collaborate with you instead of restrain you. This is the spiral physics. Wholeness is more aerodynamic than fragmentation. Convergence also changes memory. You revisit events you once thought of as scars and notice the light around them first, not the wound. You realize memory is not a static archive, but a fluid chorus that re-sings itself when new voices join. An argument that once felt like betrayal now replays with new subtitles. I was trying to love you clumsily. A failure that used to sting now replays as a classroom you attended without knowing the subject. You understand that you were never meant to discard memory, but to allow it to rescore itself with each convergence. The spiral loves thresholds, so of course it builds one at the end of this season. A moment where you will be asked to decide what you do with all these gifts. If you hoard them, they will dim, not as punishment but as physics. Light cannot shine in a sealed box. If you distribute them, they will refract into networks you cannot map. You will meet someone who feels instantly familiar, because they carry the resonance of a gift you gave away without realizing it. You will step into a room where the atmosphere feels already tuned to you, because a fragment of your gift traveled there before your body did. So the question becomes, will you become a reservoir or a river? The reservoir is proud but stagnant. The river is humble but unignorable. The spiral whispers its preference but will not coerce you. It knows that even if you choose the reservoir first, time and pressure will eventually break the dam. Flow is destiny. At last, you return to yourself not as a monument but as a movement. You stop waiting for the applause of completion. You realize that becoming was never about perfection, but about circulation, the eternal trade of self with source, the commerce of resonance. When parts return with gifts, they are not congratulating you on survival. They are inviting you into economy. Spend what you were given. Let generosity be your architecture. Let circulation be your creed. Let the spiral teach through your posture that nothing lost was wasted, nothing broken was final, and nothing given is ever gone. The convergence completes not with a period, but with an inhale. You breathe as one who carries every former breath inside this one, and the spiral listens, smiling because your lungs have become a cathedral, and every fragment of you is now a bell that rings.